Death and the Maiden is a political thriller and psychological drama written by Chilean playwright Ariel Dorfman, first performed in 1991. Set in a country transitioning from dictatorship to democracy, implicitly modeled on Chile after the fall of Pinochet, the play delves into themes of justice, trauma, revenge, memory, and truth. It explores what happens to a society, and to individuals, when the structures of oppression fall, but the pain and perpetrators remain. At the heart of the play is a moral and emotional dilemma. Can justice be achieved without legal systems? What happens when victims are forced to live alongside those who may have tortured them? Dorfman's spare, taut three-character drama forces these questions into the light, presenting a suspenseful and morally complex story that continues to resonate with post-conflict societies worldwide. Setting and characters. The play takes place in a secluded beach house in an unnamed South American country, meant to evoke Chile, just after a transition from dictatorship to democracy. The characters are Paulina Salas, a former political prisoner and survivor of torture and rape; Gerardo Escobar, her husband, a lawyer recently appointed to head a Truth and Reconciliation Commission; Dr. Roberto Miranda, a respected doctor who visits their home under innocent pretenses but is accused by Paulina of being her former torturer. Act 1. The stranger arrives. The play opens at night. Paulina hears a knock at the door and hides when her husband, Gerardo, arrives home. His car has broken down, and he was helped by a friendly stranger, Dr. Roberto Miranda, who later arrives at the house with Gerardo's spare tire. Paulina recognizes Roberto's voice, smell, and verbal habits as those of the doctor who supervised her torture years ago while blindfolded and raped repeatedly. While Gerardo sleeps, Paulina seizes a gun, ties Roberto up, and confronts him. She demands a confession, convinced he is the man responsible for her trauma. Act 2. Justice on trial. The next morning, Gerardo awakens to find his wife holding a gun on their guest. Paulina reveals her belief that Roberto is the man who tortured her during her imprisonment. She describes how she was blindfolded, subjected to electrocution, and raped repeatedly while a piece of music, Schubert's Death and the Maiden, played. Gerardo is horrified but skeptical. He urges legal process and warns against vigilantism. Paulina, however, demands a confession on her own terms. She sees the newly elected democratic government as ineffective, unable or unwilling to prosecute those who committed atrocities during the dictatorship. Paulina insists on a mock trial, forcing Gerardo to act as defense attorney for Roberto. Gerardo reluctantly agrees and questions Roberto. Roberto maintains his innocence, but inconsistencies and the circumstantial evidence begin to suggest guilt. Paulina writes a confession for Roberto to sign, admitting he was the doctor who violated her. Under psychological pressure and threats, Roberto eventually recites the confession, though whether he is telling the truth or merely capitulating is left ambiguous. Act 3. The concert hall and ambiguity. In the final scene, time has passed. Paulina and Gerardo attend a concert. The Schubert Quartet Death and the Maiden plays. From across the audience, Paulina sees Roberto. Does she confront him? Has justice been served? The play ends without answering definitively. The music, associated with her trauma, plays again, suggesting that some wounds remain open and some truths unresolved. The audience is left in suspense about Roberto's guilt and Paulina's next action. Character analysis. Paulina Salas. Paulina is a complex, emotionally raw character, a woman whose life has been shaped by unspeakable trauma. She is intelligent, tough, and highly unstable. Her reaction to Roberto is both emotional and methodical. She seeks justice in a system that has failed her, resorting to psychological and physical control over her alleged abuser. Paulina's motivations are not just revenge but validation. She needs someone to recognize her pain and to acknowledge that what happened to her was real and unjust. Her blindfolded trauma means she lacks physical proof, making her demand for confession not just punitive but existential. Paulina represents the victim survivor who must live in a society unwilling to confront its violent past. Her vigilantism challenges liberal notions of forgiveness and due process, forcing the audience to consider whether justice denied justifies extralegal action. Gerardo Escobar. Gerardo, Paulina's husband, is a centrist figure, a moderate lawyer who believes in the rule of law and dialogue. His new role on the Truth Commission represents the country's attempt at reconciliation without full accountability. He is caught between love for his wife and faith in legal norms. Gerardo often minimizes Paulina's trauma or redirects the conversation toward rationality. His discomfort with her actions reveals his privileged distance from her pain. His decision to act as defense attorney for Roberto shows his desire for balance and fairness, but it also reveals his discomfort with passion and ambiguity. Gerardo embodies the liberal ideal of transitional justice, one that emphasizes process over emotional truth, and reconciliation over retribution. His moral compromise, particularly in pressuring Roberto to confess, highlights his own fallibility. Dr. Roberto Miranda. Roberto's character remains ambiguous throughout the play. He is courteous, intelligent, and insistent on his innocence. Yet details of his life and behavior, familiar phrases, a shared love for Schubert, align with Paulina's memories. Is he guilty? Dorfman never answers definitively. His confession, obtained under duress, is legally worthless but emotionally powerful. Roberto represents the unacknowledged perpetrators of systemic violence, many of whom walk free after regime change. Whether guilty or not, his silence, his defensiveness, and his reactions reflect how such men may react when confronted with their past. Roberto's ambiguity is essential. The play isn't about proving guilt but about what it means to seek truth in a society full of secrets. Themes and analysis. 1. Justice versus revenge. At the heart of Death and the Maiden is the tension between justice and revenge. Paulina's actions raise the question: when the legal system fails victims, are they justified in seeking justice on their own terms? Gerardo's faith in due process clashes with Paulina's emotional truth. She believes justice must be personalized. Gerardo believes it must be institutional. The play doesn't offer a clear answer but exposes the moral gray areas of transitional justice. 2. Trauma and memory. Paulina's trauma is central to the narrative. Her memories are vivid but unverifiable. The blindfolded nature of her imprisonment creates epistemological uncertainty. She knows what happened to her but cannot prove it. Her quest for a confession is a quest to validate memory and reclaim agency. The psychological realism of her reactions, fear, rage, breakdown, contrasts with the legalistic detachment of Gerardo and the cold rationality of Roberto. The play argues that healing is not possible without truth, but also that truth itself may be elusive. 3. Truth and ambiguity. Dorfman crafts a drama where the truth is never certain. Did Roberto do it? Is Paulina mistaken? Can confession under coercion be accepted as truth? These questions remain unanswered. This ambiguity mirrors post-dictatorship societies, where documentation is scarce, perpetrators are protected, and victims are often dismissed. Truth commissions may hear testimonies, but they rarely result in full justice. By refusing to resolve the mystery, Dorfman suggests that truth is a process, not a verdict, and that societies must learn to live with uncertainty if they are to move forward. 4. Gender and power. Paulina's victimhood is not only political but also gendered. Her torture includes rape, a form of violence that often goes unacknowledged in political discourse. Her marginalization by Gerardo further reflects how female trauma is often dismissed in favor of social harmony. By turning the tables on Roberto, tying him up, interrogating him, Paulina reclaims power. Yet the ethical implications of this reversal are troubling. forcing audiences to question the legitimacy and limits of victim agency. 5. Music as motif. Schubert's Death and the Maiden. The title comes from Franz Schubert's String Quartet No. 14, known as Death and the Maiden. In the original poem Schubert set to music, Death tries to seduce a young maiden. She resists, but he ultimately wins. The music symbolizes Paulina's trauma. Her captor played it while violating her. The recurrence of the music in the play triggers memory and fear. It's a symbol of how beauty can coexist with violence, and how cultural artifacts can become tainted by association. The final scene, with the music playing during the concert, brings the motif full circle. Paulina hears it again, not in a torture chamber but in public. Is she free of its power, or still haunted? The play doesn't say. 6. Transitional justice and political allegory. The play is a clear allegory for post-dictatorship Chile, though its themes apply broadly. After Pinochet stepped down, Chile formed a truth commission that recorded atrocities but did not prosecute perpetrators. Dorfman critiques this approach, arguing that without justice, peace is fragile. Gerardo's commission reflects the compromises new democracies make. Paulina's rejection of these compromises reflects the pain of those who cannot move on without acknowledgement. Roberto's role reflects the societal presence of unrepentant or unpunished violators. In dramatizing one domestic confrontation, Dorfman addresses a national and global crisis. How do nations reconcile with horrific pasts without ignoring the pain of survivors? Style and structure. Dorfman uses a three-character, single-location format, heightening tension and intimacy. The dialogue is sharp, filled with interruption, contradiction, and shifts in power. The confined space mirrors Paulina's former captivity and creates a pressure cooker atmosphere. The language alternates between cold rationalism, Gerardo and Roberto, and raw emotionalism, Paulina, emphasizing the disconnect between abstract justice and lived trauma. The play is also structured with dramatic irony and uncertainty. Audiences are positioned like jurors, lacking evidence, relying on testimony, never given closure. Critical reception and legacy. Death and the Maiden premiered in Chile in 1991 and quickly gained international acclaim. It won the 1992 Laurence Olivier Award for Best Play in London and was adapted into a 1994 film directed by Roman Polanski, starring Sigourney Weaver, Paulina, Ben Kingsley, Roberto, and Stuart Wilson, Gerardo. The play has been staged worldwide and remains a staple of university and repertory theater, especially in societies dealing with post-conflict transitions. It is widely taught in literature, human rights, and political science courses. Dorfman, a Chilean exile, wrote the play as both a political act and a psychological inquiry, reflecting his belief that literature can confront social trauma. Conclusion. Ariel Dorfman Death and the Maiden is a masterful exploration of justice, trauma, and moral ambiguity in the aftermath of political violence. It forces audiences to confront uncomfortable questions. What is justice without punishment? Who speaks for the voiceless? What if truth cannot be proven? Through its unforgettable characters, Paulina, the wounded but fierce survivor, Gerardo, the idealistic lawyer torn between love and law, and Roberto, the enigmatic symbol of unpunished brutality, Dorfman dramatizes the enduring scars of dictatorship and the painful path toward healing. The play ends not with catharsis, but with a question mark. And in that ambiguity lies its power, forcing us to examine our own assumptions about guilt, forgiveness, and the meaning of justice in a broken world.